I went into this movie thinking it was going to be just another sequel, but the world building and character arcs surprised me a lot more than I thought they would. And I didn't actually rewatch the first movie going into this one, so don't hate me if I get some of the lore wrong. But I thought I would hit record on the recording software and just give my opinion and tell you what I thought about this movie. This movie picks up right where the first one left off. Nick and Judy are disobeying orders as usual and solving cases the only way they know how, with controlled chaos. This movie really expands their duo dynamic. It's like the perfect amount of dysfunction and teamwork. They work together, but they also hinder each other at the same time. Weird, but it actually works surprisingly well. And speaking of Nick and Judy, they start this movie off being like the one-hit wonder cops because of when they stopped the mayor in the first movie. Everyone says, oh, you guys aren't a real duo. You guys completed that case by pure accident. Like, you weren't supposed to accomplish that. It just fell in your lap. So they have to maneuver that dynamic of being the underdog again, but this time they're actual partners. And even with all this pressure, they get every case done, maybe not by your normal means, but they get it done one way or another. While we're on the topic of their duo and their character arcs, entering the second act, you can see Nick starting to get tired of Judy. She's always leading the charge. She's always the one speaking for the both of them. She says us and we instead of just speaking for herself and letting Nick have his own opinion. Also, there's a funny bit where she's always the driver, so throughout the movie you can see him sometimes want to get in the driver's seat, but he never does. She's always driving, so that's pretty funny too. And since he cares for Judy so much, he goes along with her anyways when she speaks for the both of them, even though it's slowly building this like quiet resentment in the background that eventually will explode into a big argument or a big fight. Speaking of the big fight, Judy always speaking for Nick leads to him eventually getting captured, and Judy leaves him to help Gary and Popper take down the Lynxleys. And even though all of this happens, Nick never hates Judy. All he's trying to do is get back to her and make sure she's alright. This is going to lead us directly into talking about the world building, because I really like how they expanded the world in this movie and incorporated more different types of animals and kind of explained why they were missing from the first movie. This is where the sea village, or like the water animal village, comes into play, and the way they explain this in the movie is actually interesting and makes sense, because Zootopia isn't the whole world, and when it was founded and created by the Lynxleys, the border was cut off right at the water animals village, so it just wasn't included. But I think this village has some of the coolest designs in the entire movie, especially when there's the scene of them escaping or running from the police, because they are fugitives by this point. It shows a top and bottom down shot where there's a village above the water, but there's also a village underwater. I just think it looks very cool, and the people who created it and thought of that idea deserve their props. And the animals in this village, I don't know if they're really all there. They're kind of there and they're hanging out, but not many of them like interact or like act like the land animals. So I'm not sure if there's something there, but I'm sure we'll find out if there is. I could be completely wrong, so take this with the smallest grain of salt. This puts us right around the time whenever they leave the water animal village and end up at the Reptile Hangout. And I forgot to mention this a minute ago, but the reptiles were also missing from the first movie, and they explain why, and that's actually a really big part and a really big plot detail in this movie, so I'm gonna kind of get into that right now. But yeah, this is where all of the reptiles hang out at. It's literally called the Reptile Hangout, and this place is sick. Seeing all the different types of reptiles in one area is cool, but it's also very sad, because when you find out that they're only there because of the snake incident, they're forced to be there because the world sees them as like the absolute worst and the most evil out of all the animals, when they're really not. They're just like anybody else. They were just painted in a very bad light. And while we're speaking about reptiles, I want to talk about Gary the snake, because at first I wasn't sure what to think about Gary, because your first introduction is, oh, he's the bad guy, he's trying to take the Lynxleys, but then you find out, oh, maybe he's not so bad, maybe he's trying to help. But also you're like, no, but what if he's like double crossing us? What if he is still a bad guy and we don't really know what's happening? You really are in Nick and Judy's shoes in these scenes, because you have no idea who to trust. It's a really like cool and confusing dynamic at first, but it turns out he was actually fully genuine, and he's actually working with Popper, who is part of the Lynxley family, and turns out to be a rebellion and is like the black sheep, where he's doing the opposite. His family's doing bad, where he's trying to do everything good he can to stop them. Or is he? Because turns out Popper starts out helping Judy and Gary, and he is actually going against his family, but right before they get to the snake's great grandmother's house, he stabs Judy with a snake venom weapon to try to recreate the snake incident that first gave the Lynxleys power. And he does this all so he can finally be accepted by his dad and his family, because like I said, he is the outcast. And this is actually a pretty insane twist. I had no idea. I don't think there was really any signs early on to say this is what's happening, but it was really entertaining to watch. And his arc in this movie is actually really tragic. Like, he did everything to prove his worthiness to his family. Like, he literally became friends with these people. He has his whole master plan. He eventually turned on them, but his family still threw him away like he was nothing. This was a really powerful character arc, and the best part is the betrayal makes complete sense. You completely understand where he's coming from. But this twist in this arc was done so well, and I love this movie for it. While we're still on the topic of Popper and his betrayal, I want to talk about the Lynxleys and his family, because his family in this movie is literally like the Illuminati, bro. Well, not really, but they control everything behind the scenes. They're the sole reason why the reptile village was destroyed in the first place. All the reptiles got pushed into hiding, as well as they built Zootopia off of a lie. It was all done because of the snake incident. And I know I spoiled some things, but I don't want to specifically point out the snake incident because I want you to watch the movie and still have something to look forward to. But now for a second here, I want to jump back to Nick and Judy, because throughout the movie there has been that secret animosity of Judy always choosing to say we and us with Nick, and Nick's just he cares for her so much that he goes along with it and he's there for her and he's just like, let's do it. But eventually this explodes into a huge fight while they're climbing up this mountain to get to a cabin where they're looking for some evidence to solve their case. But when this huge fight takes place, the little carrot recorder that symbolizes their partnership ends up getting broken, and that leads to like an uncertain moment of, does this mean we're not partners? Like, what does this mean for our partnership? Because that was like the start, which in hindsight, it's pretty dumb, but it is very human, even though they're not human. And this scene just hits that hard. Like, it really is emotional. And they continue climbing up. They get to the top. Eventually some stuff happens where they get separated, but that is definitely, in my opinion, the emotional climax of the movie, where everything breaks and then they kind of rekindle as they go along. But let me know if you agree with that in the comments down below. Now I'm gonna segue to another character I really liked, which is Nibbles. This character is actually pretty funny, and her and Nick's dynamic is actually hilarious. Like, he's so annoyed by her because she's just so out there and so over the top, and it's really funny to see her unintentionally annoy him. And whoever voiced Nibbles in this movie absolutely killed it. I love her character. I don't know, she's not my favorite in the movie, but she was a really good highlight. I love her interactions with Nick and a few of the other characters. Actually, while we're talking about voice acting, there are so many voice actors in this movie that I had no idea of until looking back at the cast when making this video. Like, we get people like Macaulay Culkin and his wife, and like Idris Elba, who was in the first one but I didn't know somehow. I'm sure I'm missing a ton more. But yeah, the final act wraps up the movie character arcs perfectly, and I have no idea where it'll go if they plan on making a third one. I think I read something where they want to, but there's no scoops here. I have no idea, but I'm really hyped to see where they go moving forward. And again, I didn't rewatch the first one recently, so I hope I didn't miss any lore or any big story points that set up some stuff in this movie, so bear with me there. But this movie also now holds the record for the fastest animated movie to ever reach $1 billion in a little over 2 weeks. I think it's like 17 days, which is mind-blowing. So I think that speaks for itself. Go check this movie out. I loved it. I'm sure you will too. And if you have seen it, let me know in the comments below what you thought. But with that said, as always, stay curious and keep the conversation going.